Hello and welcome to episode 3. If you've reached it this far, I'm incredibly surprised but also incredibly grateful because I never thought it would come this far. But what I wanted to speak about today is I have this friend called Rebecca, and she is someone who I met on Threads. So I spoke about in the other episode, building a community on there, and she's one of the people who I connected with, and she does a lot of artwork, and she does videos every day about the artwork that she does. Now, I'm not particularly the greatest artist. Like it was never really my thing. What I did was so I comment on her artwork sometimes, and I just tell her like what it reminds me of, and it kind of became this running thing where she's doing this thing at the moment where it's 100 days of faces, and she does a different face every day, and I would comment on it and create a story around the face. Excuse me. And what she does is sometimes she asks for donations. So one day I donated. I sent her 70 quid, and and what she did is she went out and bought these chalks with it, and then she went around the street and started chalking these little art designs on the street, and I was like, oh, and she drew this dog, and it was really funny. She drew this like picture of a dog, and he was like pooping, and she drew it on like the pavement. I was like, oh, you know what, like. Because there was a time a few years ago actually when I went around doing these little chart designs. So I have done it before. It's not completely new to me. But when I saw Rebecca do it, I was like, you know what? It's kind of inspired me, and I was like, right, I'm gonna order some chalks basically. So the local park, I think as I've detailed before, so I know quite a lot of people in the park, and I go to it every day with the dog. Um, so what I did is I ordered the chalks, and I went to the park, and I did all these different designs on the floor. Now, as I said before, I'm not like an amazing artist or anything like that, but I tried to keep it simple. I wrote like messages of like affirmation and things, like one of the messages that I wrote was kindness can change the world. Uh, a smile a day is always returned. It was little things like that, and what I did is I drew smiley faces on all of the trees. So like when you're walking down the path and you look to your left and your right, you see all these different smiley faces, so there's like 6 different colors as well. So I drew them. It was like purple, blue, red, yellow, and turquoise, and like I drew all these different smiley faces and all of these different messages. And the idea was, and it's similar to my reasons with doing the Good Morning game. It's I mean like it's kind of like, so instead of like saying hello to them like to their sort of like face, instead of doing that, I'm leaving little like it's like little love messages, isn't it? It's like little love notes. Um, and like one of the reasons that I did it, because I was working a lot on Benji's behaviour, because he's reached teenager mode now and he's started barking and stuff, and I'm having to train him, but I'm having to come out really early for like an hour, and then sometimes I come out at night but later, and I end up missing some of the people in the group, and they messaged me on Monday and said like, where have you been? We've not seen you in a few days. And I was like, well, I'm training Benji at the moment. I can't always, we're sort of missing each other in the park. But I thought what I'll do is, even though I can't be there physically, I'll beautify the entire park so that when they walk into it, they'll still sort of feel my presence. I'll still kind of be around, even if I'm not around physically. Um, so I think initially I kind of did it for the people I know. But it's funny because the first time I did it, and I wrote little basic messages, I put love hearts and things like that, and then the rain literally came down that night. But it was funny actually, because I was walking around the park, and I was doing these little chart things on the floor, and then I remember I was halfway round, and then Layla, who like I've met her a few times. She has 2 little dogs called Rocky and Mabel. They're like 2 little terriers, and Mabel comes in. Sorry, not yeah, Mabel the dog. Mabel comes out first, and then Rocky follows. The two dogs come out, and I think is that Rocky and Mabel, and then Layla comes out afterwards. But because she's ahead of me, she walks out of the gate and she sort of veers to the right, so she doesn't see me. So I'm coming up behind her, and what happens is Rocky and Mabel turn around and they notice me. And then I start stroking them, and then eventually Layla turns around like, "Where's my dogs?" and sees me coming up behind. And she asked me how I'm doing, all that sort of thing. And then we're walking, and then just as we're walking, casually, I walk up to a tree and do a smiley face, and she watches me, and she's like, "Did you just draw a smiley face on that tree?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm just kind of doing like chalk designs to kind of like, brighten up people's day basically, and hopefully make some people feel better." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then we're going around the park, and in that kind of like changes the energy a little bit. And then I do like a big love heart on the floor. I do like 3 love hearts. I stop and I'm like, draw these 3 big love hearts. And then I did another message on the floor. I think it was something like "You are beautiful" or something like that. And she was like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh," and we were walking along. There was these stones on the left hand side. They're like decorative stones. But she looked at the stones and she said, "That'd be a great place to put a message." I said, "Yeah, it would." And then she looked at me and she was like, "Can I borrow your chalk?" So I was like, "Okay, what colour do you want?" Because at the time I had 3 colours. It was only later on I got 6. So I was like, which colours do you want? I think I had like red, yellow, and blue. And she took the red, and then she started doing her own little designs on these stones. The first one she did, I think, was a flower. The second one was a cat. Like, was it? Well, actually, what it was, it looked like a caterpillar because she did it and she said, "What do you think that is?" And I said, "It looks like a caterpillar to me." And she said, "Oh, it's supposed to be a snake." And I said, "What is that? Your spirit animal or something?" She's like, "Maybe." And I remember it was funny actually. I said to her, I said, "Are you any good at art?" And she said, "Well, funnily enough, no." And not only that, is my art teacher back in high school pretty much begged me not to continue art because I was really terrible at it. I was like, okay. So it's funny because like I was kind of the same. Like I've never really been good at art, but like I try to keep things simple. Just to like, because I don't want to try and like do something more than capable of and then ruin it, because like when you do something in chalk, like I can't erase it. It's not to say like you couldn't put water down, but it's really difficult to erase the like big chunky chalk. So it's like whatever you do, it has to be like spot on. So we keep walking down, and she does another chalk drawing. So she did, what was it? The other one was a dog. But part of the stone was kind of like sort of malformed kind of thing. It was like there was a lump on the top, so she used the lump as like the dog's head, and there was a body. It looked really weird. It didn't even look like a dog in the end. But I was like, you know what, at least she was having fun. We went further around the park and we saw this tree. It's a big wide tree, right? And I drew a face on it, like a funny face. And then she said, "Why don't you give it hands?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I give it hands. And then she said, "Oh, you got to give it feet as well." I was like, "Okay, so give it feet." And then I looked at it and I stepped back. I said, "You know what?" And because it looked like the tree was spreading his arms wide. So at the bottom of the tree, I chalked in yellow chalk, and I put "Hug Me" at the bottom of the tree. And I said, "Oh, how about that?" And then she walked over and she hugged the tree. And then I took a picture of it. It was the only picture I took in the entire time. So I don't like to have my phone out all the time. But I took a picture of her hugging the tree, and it was like a really good moment. It's funny actually that she hugged the tree because I think it was about a week or 2 before I did this little challenge where I did a selfie with 10 trees. So I hugged 10 trees and I did a selfie. The reason that I did the selfies was because I wanted other people to join me in the challenge of hugging trees. But no one ever did. I did it like three days in a row. And some people were like, "Oh, that's really good," and "Oh, I like that." But it's like, well, but just didn't join me. I was like, okay. So yeah, to this day, no one has joined me on the tree hugging selfie journey. But it was just funny that she hugged the tree in front of me, and it kind of like it was like a callback to when I was in that sort of phase. Um, but yeah, while I was doing the chalk. So the first time I did it, and it rained that night, so that erased the chalk, and I was like, no, so I went back the next day and did all the chalk designs again. That was the second time. Then it rained again. Then the third time. It's funny because I'm literally looking at the weather app, being like, right, I need a few days where it's going to be sunny, so I can maximize how many people are going to see these chalk designs, because I want to try and reach as many people as possible. And then it finally happened, and it's like, right, it's going to be sun for a few days now. So I was like, right, okay, now is the time. This is the time to do it. So I went in the morning really early. I walked Benji for an hour, came back, put him in his crate, or his little mini tent, as I call it, and then went back out and did my chalk designs. Now, like this time, I was like, because it's funny actually, because the first time I did it, it was kind of like new to me. So a lot of the designs were very basic. I wrote very basic messages, did like basic love hearts and things. Like I did like the sun. It was very simple, but to be honest, the more that I did it, I think the better I got at it, and I started to refine what I was doing. So the third time that I went out, I'm kind of like a seasoned warrior at this point, and I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do. And I wrote so many messages, and so many like funny little drawings, and and they were, and this is the thing is like, the third time that I went out actually, and this is the thing, I wasn't in a very social mood, but I sort of like, I was driven by my need to sort of get this message out there. So I believed in the message, but at the same time, I didn't quite have the capacity for social interaction. Because some days are like that. Like it's not every day I go out. When I talked about going out and doing the good morning day, the good morning game. I don't always want to do that, because some days I don't feel very social. And the thing is like with doing the chart designs, right? Like you have to really focus, because, like I said, if you make a mistake, it looks terrible. You have to try and correct it by chalking over it. It doesn't look good. And I've only luckily done that like once or twice, and it didn't look too bad. But like when you've got to crouch down onto the pavement, and then you're obviously chalking your design onto there, but there's people walking around, and I can't do the two things at once. It's like either I'm doing the chalk thing or I'm socializing. The socializing is not a priority to me at that time, because I'm focusing so hard on what I'm doing. My social, if anything, the socializing is the chalk, because it's a message to a lot of people, isn't it? So when I remember, I was crouching, because I placed the messages strategically, because there's places where there's a lot of foot traffic, like where the paths kind of diverge and it goes in four directions, is obviously a place with a lot of foot traffic. And I went in it, and I think it was, initially it was about 7 o'clock. I went in on the evening, and then I went in the morning before to sort of add to it. But on the evening, I remember it was so busy. There was so many people. There was joggers, there was mums with prams and kids, and there was so many different people. And I remember thinking, there's this part of the path that's bare, I need to do something on it. And but there was so many people walking about, and I remember feeling this like sort of anxiety of, I'm not feeling very social. I don't want to go into a space where loads of people are going to have to walk around me. But I was like, I've got to do it, because it's the message in it, and I've got to deliver the message, and there's I'm gonna have to just do it. So I walked over there, and I crouched down, and I started This was when I did the message that said kindness can change the world, and I was crouched down, and there was so many people like walking around me, jogging around me, and the thing is, some of them didn't say anything, but there were some who said, who thanked me, similar to the litter actually, similar message, when people were sort of walking past me like, oh, thanks for doing that kind of thing. And then there was a girl wearing like a hijab, and she walked up to me, and I was just at the end of finishing the messages. I was just like finishing the message. I was just doing the shading on the last letter, and she walked up to me, and she said, "Oh, can I take a picture?" I said, "Yeah, no worries. And just let me finish this bit." She's like, "Yeah, okay." So I finished it, and I got up and I stepped back. I kind of like looked at it. I was like, "Yeah, it looks pretty." It turned out better than I thought it was. And she took a picture of it. And she said, I agree, by the way. I think kindness can change the world as well. And because I wasn't in a social mode, like I just said thanks. Like so like if I was in the social mode, like I probably would have responded back with something like, but I was just like thanks. Because I didn't have the capacity to hold any long conversation with her. And then she laughed and just said, have a good day. Because my focus was on the work. It wasn't on trying to socialize with people. And that's the thing. I can get very focused on a single thing, and then it's like I can't split my focus between that and something else. It's not to say that I can't multitask, because while I was walking with Layla, I was talking and chalking at the same time. I was talking and chalking. But with her, because I know her so well, I'm pretty comfortable with her. But like when it comes to strangers, like that's a different ball game, because like you've kind of got to be on it. You've got to be like switched on. So yeah, it was like some people did thank me. There was a guy that jogged past me, and he said I love your work, and I was like, I just said thanks again, and he kept jogging, and then. So so when I finished the chalk designs in the evening, I remember I was walking about, excuse me, and there's a play area where the kids play, and I drew the circle, and inside the circle I put inside it "Be kind," and then on the top of the circle I did, when you do those paper cutouts and you do like people holding hands. So I did that, but in different colours, so it looked like children holding hands on the outside of the circle. And then I was walking around in the evening. I'd pretty much done everything at that point that I wanted to do. And I saw these kids playing, and one of the girls was stood inside the circle, and one of the girls was stood outside the circle. And the girl inside the circle said, "You can't get me while I'm inside the circle." And we were playing like Tiggy It. So she was like, and then when she jumped out of the circle, she chased her. And then when she jumped back in the circle, she was like, "This is the safe space." And I was like, I never thought about that. So like it gave me an idea. Like I thought about it for a bit. I came back, because at that point I was quite tired. I'd been doing it for like an hour and a half. And, I finished my walk. I spoke to Jamie, who's someone I know. He's like, I think he's like 20 years old. He always wears this bright green fluorescent jacket. No matter, like it can be like really hot, he always wears the jacket. Like, and it's funny because he says I don't like it when it's too hot, and I don't like it when it's too cold. So he just wears his coat the entire time. And he has a dog called Milo, who's a border collie, and he's got ADHD, but he's on medication. So there's a different. It's really difficult with people on medication who are neurodivergent, because it's almost like masking. Like, it's weird. Like if someone's unmedicated, it's really easy to tell that they're neurodivergent. But when someone's medicated, like it confuses my senses, my spidey senses when it comes to picking up on neurodivergency. So he is medicated. But at the same time, like I know him quite well now, and I've known him since Benji was quite young. So I'm pretty comfortable with him, And he actually asked me, and he said, because he didn't know it was me that did the chalk designs, and at the time he walked over to me, and I was drawing chalk around my feet, because what I was doing was, so I was doing different like designs where my feet were in one position, then I twisted them and put chalk around them again. Then I spread my legs and chalk around them again. So he did, different foot positions in different areas, and it was like a build-up kind of thing. And he mentioned it to me when he saw me. He said, like, did you see all the chalk designs at the park? And I said, yeah, I saw them because I made them. And he was like, what? And then I pulled out the chalk and he was like, you made those? And I was like, yeah. And then he said, I thought it was some dad with kids. And I was like, well, it was some dad, but I just don't have kids, But yeah, it was quite funny. And we were walking around the park and we were just chatting. I was throwing the ball for Milo's dog. And he said to me, do you not feel anxiety like when you're, because like quite a lot of the, like as you're chalking when there's a lot of people around, there's quite a lot of attention on you. And I said, yeah. I said, no, I still feel anxiety. It's not like I'm just fucking chock full of confidence and I can, like it's never been like that. Like I still feel it because my natural state is that like I don't really like the attention being on me. But at the same time, like, I believe in the message. Like, I want to, like, help heal the world, but I don't want to be at the forefront of the attention, if you know what I mean. Like, I happily just do the work, do what I feel is going to have, like, a positive effect, and then just disappear. So like, people don't notice me. And, like, when I did the chart designs the first time, I didn't mention it to anyone. I wanted to wait and see if anyone noticed. And that's the thing, like, I don't want to come out and say, oh, this is me, I did this, because like it feels a bit like it kind of like feels like it's part of like it's the ego, like I'm doing it for an ego boost, which is not the case. Like for me, the reward for me is that people smile when they see these messages. I wrote a funny one actually. It was near the duck pond. And I put "You're not alone," and the O in there had a smiley face. And then I looked at it, and then when I read it, I was like, hold on, that does sound a little bit creepy, because like when I was looking around and it was like quiet and it was nighttime and it's like, "You're not alone," and I was like, oh, okay. So in order to make it not sound creepy, I put in brackets underneath the message in a good way, and I found that quite funny because I was like, hopefully people get a kick out of that. But yeah, some of the messages I put, and I did get inspiration from Google at some point. I just put like kindness messages to write down and things like that. Because like at some point you're kind of racking your brain being like, what do I write? Like I've written this, I've written that. So sometimes inspiration kicks in, you just write what comes to you. But then other times it's kind of like, I don't know. What I was saying about the kids. So the kids playing inside the circle, it gave me an idea, and I thought I never thought about that, So when I came back in the morning, I developed this idea where around the playground, what I did is I drew circles. So I drew 2 circles together, 2 decent sized circles, enough to step inside, and I put numbers in each circle. And I would do 2 on the left side, and then probably about 4 foot, 5 foot down, I do another 2, and then to the right side, I do 2 again and 2 again. They had numbers in each one. So the numbers were dual purpose. So imagine like I did a 3 and a 5. So for a younger kid, they can add that up, obviously, and do maths, which is like educational, or it could mean this is how many seconds you get inside the bubble where you're protected. So it's like this one, you have 3 seconds. And it's like 1, 2, 3, run. This one you have 5 seconds. Sometimes the most simple things, the most simple ideas are the most fun. And I did this, it was funny. So there was this big space and I'd done all the circles, and I did some squares as well, where I wrote inside it and I said, what's your favourite animal? What's your favourite colour? Again, it was just trying to interact with people and just trying to engage them. But then there was this big space, and it was right near the playground, this big area, and Gary was with me at the time with Kieran. I said, what do you think I should put? There's a big space there. What do you think I should do? Because it has to be a big... And he was like, I don't know. What do you want to do? And I said, what do you think about doing a big star? And he was like, you could do, I suppose, but is that, is it just going to do a star? And I was like, I don't know, So and it was really difficult to do, because So the way I did it, because the way I do stars is like the I think it's called the Star of David, because you do a triangle, don't you? And then you do an upside down triangle. Now, because this triangle was massive, like it was really difficult because I had to bend over and do a straight line, and then I had to turn and do another straight line. I had to do the dot to make sure that it was right, and then I had to step forward and make sure, like it was really difficult. So I did the Star of David, right? I looked at the star, and I did it in two colours, and I thought, just looks a bit blank, that, doesn't it? It's like it's not really, there's not really enough there in it. Like, I was just like, right, okay, what we're going to do now? So I thought, right. So then what I did was I don't know what you call it, was it like an octagon or something? The space in the middle of it, I joined where the points were. I drew lines across. So then you had like four more. I created four more boxes inside of the star, and then I was like, okay, right. I've done that now, so it's no longer a star, even though it still kind of looks like one. What am I gonna? I feel like I should put something inside the boxes so they can kind of like the circle, so they can hop around it. So then I thought, should I draw a smiley face? I thought, let's just see. So I drew a smiley face on one of the tips of the stars, and then I was like, should I draw a sad face? So I drew a sad face, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe all the because there were 6 tips of the stars, I think. Is it 1, 2, 3? Yeah, there was six, right? And there could have been 5 actually. 1, so it was right. It's either 5 or 6. So, and I thought, right, smiley face, sad face, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if when you jumped on the outside of the circles, you had to mimic the emotion. So when you jump onto the sad face, you have to mimic sadness. When you jump onto the happy face, you have to. So I did a smiley face, a sad face, an angry face, a face that was crying. So you jump on that and you go, and I think and like a shocked face, like where it's like the mouth was open. It's like so I did those faces, and then on the inside. So I thought, right, the game on the outside is the mimic the emotion, but then the game on the inside, I was like, what shall I put here? So I thought, we'll do like a movement. So rather than emotion, we'll do movement. So I did hop on one leg. So I put hop in capital letters. I did spin. I did twist. What else did I do? I did squat, and the last one I did was fart. Because I thought that kids would love that, like with the last one being fart. So at the end you just go, and just do like a fart noise. And when I stepped back from it in the end, I was actually quite proud of it. And Gary, he walked off and he said, he left me when I was doing the star, and he said, I'll come back round. And he said to me, he said, by the time I come back, make sure you've done something, make sure you've made something. And by the time that he came back, and this is the thing, I walked around, once I finished it, I walked around the park a bit, and I didn't see him. And then when I was going back across the field, I saw him. And he was talking to this other woman. She's a Chinese woman, the dog's called Polly, it's a golden retriever. Really, really nice dog, and she's really nice as well. And she was playing with, the 2 dogs were playing, and I walked over to Gary, and I just started chatting to him, and he said, I saw what you did, like, and I said, did you like it? And he said, yeah, it was really good, like, with the way that you did it, like, and yeah, I was quite proud of it, and even though, like, I don't get to see, so to speak, the fruits of my labour, like, even though I did a little bit with the kids, on the evening, but I knew, because, like, this weekend I was going away to Worcester, so it's like, I'm leaving people with my designs. Like I'm leaving. Like I'm not going to be able to walk around the park and see people playing. I'm not going to be able to see, how this turns out. But I didn't mind because I wanted people to sort of feel better about the day. And funnily enough, is without asking for it. There was a post on Facebook, and on Facebook they have this group. Which is called Friends of Frog Lane Park. And on this group, I don't know if I mentioned the park being Frog Lane Park, but that's what it's called anyway. But on this group, they posted about the chalk designs. And the thing is, obviously, no one knows that it was me. And he posted, it was an older man with glasses posted about it, and he said, he said, I don't know who's done all these chalk designs around the park, but I just wanted to say a massive thank you because I was pretty much constantly smiling every time I saw one of these messages as I was going around the park. And he said as well, he said it brightens up the park and makes it feel, so much better. And then I think over like 40, 50 people liked it. And then a lot of people commented on it as well and posted pictures that they'd taken of the chalk designs. And it was funny actually because after the first batch of drawings that I did, I remember I created this thing just before one of the paths. I said love walk, and then I did like hearts going up. So I did a heart on the left, heart on the right, heart on the left. So it's kind of like as you walk up, it's just heart. And then I finished doing it, and then just after it, I said I hope you feel better. And then again, just a bit further up, I did this massive heart, and I said, here's one more big heart for you. And then I think I put something like sending lots of love your way or something like that. And when I was walking around the park in the evening, I saw this girl was actually taking pictures of the walkway that I'd done, and she was smiling. And when I was walking past her, funnily enough, I walked right up to her when she was taking it. And I thought, should I say to her, I thought of saying something like, oh, do you like my drawings? And I thought, no, it doesn't sound right there. Because I'm trying to take credit, even though it was me that did them. But again, it feels too egocentric. So I was kind of happy to just see the effect that it had on people, where they were taking pictures and stuff and they were, it doesn't matter to me about taking the credit. So yeah, that was quite nice. So I did. So even though I didn't necessarily pursue the credit, or try to pursue the feedback, there was still feedback from people. And what's funny is I did it initially for the group, for the dog group, and they didn't even most of them didn't go into the park, so they didn't see it. And I didn't put anything in the group because I wanted them to notice it. And then message and be like, who's done all these chalk? I wanted it to be a funny thing, because that's what I do. I kind of have a laugh with them. I wanted it to be funny where they message and say, who's chalked the entire park? And it took them, I think I did it on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday when I did the first chalk designs. And it took them until Saturday to notice all the chalk designs. And then Mandy in the group messaged me and not messaged me, but that she actually put a message on the group and said, "Oh, I've just seen all the chalk designs that you did." And she said, Mandy's she's 70 years old. She had a birthday not long ago, and I went to the party. But yeah, she messaged and said, "It looks beautiful what you did," kind of thing. And it's funny because some people didn't know that it was me, but when I mentioned that it was me, it was yeah, that sound. I knew it was probably you, So it's almost even though it was kind of an on the whim thing, I think it was some of the messages because Gary actually said to me, he said when I read it, that big triangle, the big star thing that I did, and he said, when you put fart in there, it was that is so you to put fucking fart in there, because. Even though I think the majority of my messages are very sort of heartwarming and kind of affirmations, but I do like to put some funny stuff in there as well because I do like to make people laugh as much as I can. And some of the comments, there was a woman that came up to me because I was doing a chalk design at the time, and she said, "Oh, is it you that I've been writing all of the affirmations?" And I said, "Yeah, it's me, yeah." And she's like, thank you so much. I really like all the messages that you put in there. And I got quite a few comments like that, where people just add little sort of. Oh, one of the ones was really funny is, so I did for the kids, because when I went in the morning, I was doing it mainly for the kids, the designs, and I did at the start of the path, I drew a line across, and I wrote. What did I put? I put race underneath in big letters, big orange letters, and then in the turquoise I put starting line. And then a jogger went past me, this woman, And when she went past me, she saw the starting line thing, and she went, "I'm doing it, I'm doing it," and it was really funny, because do you know? I don't know if you know, like, do you know when someone speaks or when someone and you can hear the inner child, like you can hear like the kid comes out, and that's one of the things that I really love is when you're doing these little games and these little it's sort of like, and I did, I forgot about the hopscotch that I did. Let me just describe this hopscotch. So the hopscotch that I did, and I got the idea online. So what it is, it's a normal hopscotch where you get like this one one block, two block, one block, one block, two block, one block, two block, one block, right? That's the hopscotch. But what it is that just before the hopscotch begins, it says I am in big letters. I did that in yellow. And then in each box, it has, so in the first box, I wrote brave, then I put kind, imaginative, courageous, valued was one of them, important. So you would do the hopscotch, but every time you stepped on a square, it was like reinforcing this, like I am this, I am this, I am this. And I was really proud of that actually. That was something that, like I said, I got the inspiration online for, but I kind of changed it and I did the words the way I wanted to do the words, So I kind of put my spin on it. So yeah, that I was really proud of that. But going back to what I said before, so I really love it, and it was the same with Layla. So Layla's a mother, she has 2 kids, she has 2 dogs, and and I think this is the thing, you can get bogged down with the seriousness of life, and I spoke about in the other episode about the importance of dedicating an hour a day to play, and I think it's so important, and I think this is one of the things I personally believe that neurodivergence that we're meant to bring to society, because we are more childlike, and we do tend to get depressed when we're stuck in the cycle of just paying bills and worrying about things and worrying about. I don't think we're meant to do that. Like we're not meant to worry about everything. You know what I mean? Leave that to the adults. Leave that to the neurotypicals. We're meant to go out into the world and play and create and bring joy to the world. That's what I feel like. That's our purpose, you know what I mean? Like, when I said about that message, kindness can change the world, and so can play, and so can fun. And I feel like that's what we're meant to do. I realize that while we're in burnout, while we're exhausted, and life leaves us exhausted, we don't have the energy to go out and to affect change, but but the thing is, I don't think anyone else is going to do it. So I think that's why it falls to us, because we see the world differently, right? We see the world differently. We feel the world differently. We are the super sensitive parts of society, and we're outnumbered. We're outnumbered, 9-1. But the thing is obviously that makes it sound like we're we're being surrounded. But the thing is we can influence people, we can affect change, we can detect patterns, we can detect the patterns and we can go against the grain. We can do things that normal neurotypicals don't even think about, don't even imagine. Do you know what I mean? We can come up with things that they say about, that message, and I said kindness can change the world. Now, the world is too much for one person. I can't change the world. I can't. It's too big. The world's too big. If you try to put the world on your shoulders, your back will fucking break. And I've tried to do that as well. When you take on all of the world's problems, you break and you can't do it. So it's don't put the world on your shoulders. Don't do that, because you can't do that. The whole point of this is honestly, this is my kind of dream, but I can also see it being realized as well. But this is what I believe, and it's something that it's not just like some cuckoo bullshit that I've come up in my head. Like it's pattern recognition, and I see it in threads. Now, for me, all of the neurodivergent people in the world, we're much stronger when we connect. I did speak about this before. We're so much stronger as a group in small little clusters, small little bit support systems that are then connected to each other and then connected to the big, like a big spider web with like circles inside it. We're so much stronger when we're all connected, right? So I can't change the world on my own. But you see what, you don't see it, but you can visualize what I've done in the park. You can visualize what I've done with the litter picking. You can see that I've been able to affect change in my local area. No, I can't change the world, but locally, and the thing is, how many people walk through that park, right? How many people have I affected? So walking through that park, there must be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people go through that park every day because it's a big park, So hundreds and hundreds of people have seen that message, maybe 1,000, How many people do I say good morning to? 137 in a single day. I don't do that every day, obviously, because I don't want to do it every day. But how many people have I spoken to? How many people have I affected? Because it's the ripple effect, isn't it? If you drop a pebble into the sea, right, the sea is huge. The sea is the world. The sea is fucking massive. It's not going to have a massive effect, but the ripple effect, it's now I'm one pebble, right? Drop 1,000 pebbles in. Drop 1,000,000. You know what I mean? Think about it that way. If 1,000,000 pebbles dropped into the sea, think of the ripples. It would be massive, wouldn't it? And this is what I'm saying. I believe that, first of all, fundamentally, neurodivergents have to come together and help each other. Help each other get off the floor. That's step one. Because a lot of us are on the floor and we're exhausted and we don't have the energy to go out and affect change as what we're essentially meant to do. We don't have the energy to do that, right? So first of all, we have to get each other off the floor and say, right, okay, connect to me. You know what I mean? Send me a message, whatever it may be, or through different mediums, whatever it is, we need to help each other. That's the thing. It's not a case of, we'll just go and help yourself or you can do it yourself. No, we thrive in communities. We survive with support around us. None of us are the full package. We're each one of us has strengths. Each one of us has a skill. You know what I mean? Sorry, I just heard a noise. So what we're meant to do is come together and form these groups, these communities, and then we become stronger because we're no longer alone. Then once we've done that, then we can start causing ripples. Because what I said, I think it was the first episode, and I said about, I'm more than just me. I'm more than just me on my own. I'm so much stronger because of the people around me. I'm the sum of everyone who supports me. So, and because of that, I'm a much stronger individual. If I was just on my own, I wouldn't be anywhere near as strong as what I am now. And that's what I want for other people. Because I know the difference that makes, you see. If you're surrounded by your tribe, by your people, by the people that understand you, by the people that support you, that make you feel safe, as I said in one of the other episodes, the people that make you feel safe, the people that really cheerlead you, the people that when you're on the floor, they'll hold their hand out and help you up. When they're on the floor, you help them up. Your tribe, we all need the tribe. Every one of us, we all need, because that's how we work as human beings, as neurodivergents, that's how we work. We need our tribe, we need our support system, we need to be surrounded by our people, right? And you have these little groups, and these groups can come together. Now, the groups themselves, and this is the thing, not every neurodivergent group is going to completely gel with the other group, because one group will be doing one thing and one group will be doing the other thing, and these are the people that, because it's we can all coexist, we can all come together at times and stuff like that, but I believe your inner circle, they're really your people. You know what I mean? So, like, we're not all going to be really, really, really close friends, if you see what I mean. We're not all going to be like, oh my God, I look like, because I think like we're meant to work in small clusters. So two groups can come together and you can have connections through the group's individual connections, but those groups won't merge. You see what I mean? Like you'll have a group of people, whether it's, for me, it's like my close group, I would say is about 4 or 5 people, Then I have the outer group, which is the people I connect with in the park and the people I see every day and blah, blah, blah. That's like the outer group, and like I don't see them as often, but I'm still pretty close to some of them. And then you have the group again, you go out again in a big circle, and then the people that you affect that maybe like you see much less but you acknowledge kind of thing. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of like how it works. It's how I see it basically. It's how my social circle kind of works. Or I do believe that we are here to affect change, like on it. And like I said, we can't do it individual. Like as an individual, we can't change the world. We can't do it globally. But if we all come together, if we form this big spider net, this big web thing, where we're all kind of connected a little bit, and I do see it, like I've seen it on Threads and I've seen it online, and I think that, you talk about the world today and how, it's not as good as the old days. Like, okay, I suppose to some degree, some of it isn't, especially socially. But you look at the information that we have now, you look at the resources we have that are available to us, you look at the knowledge that we can attain very easily. Like, you don't have to go to the library and get a library card and sit there for hours looking through books and finding information. Now, obviously doing that is its own, like, that's fun in itself, but now you can just type in whatever you want. Now you've got AI, you know what I mean? Like, we live in an era where you can find out anything instantly. And this is the first time that's ever happened. And we don't know what the effects of that are, because for me, it means that humanity has the potential to evolve and move forward rapidly. Because, like, think about it, like, because all of the ideas and all of the discussions we're having, and like neurodivergency now, personality types, like we're starting to define ourselves. Like, yes, we're slapping labels on it, and there are limitations with that, but it's useful as a guideline, and I know when you get down to it, and when you talk about between your close friends, there is no labels. I don't say to my, oh yeah, I'm autistic, blah, blah, blah. Like, they just know me as me. I'm more in depth than that. But if I'm referring to myself to a group, and it's not like I'm going to walk in and go, hi, I'm autistic. I'm not going to do that. But like I said, it's useful, because it's a way to signpost people to a certain degree and be like, you're kind of this type of person. So you're not, because that's the thing, right? No matter which way I spin it, I'm not going to have close relationships with neurotypical people, because they're the opposite of me. Like, I don't go with the crowd. I don't do things to blend in. I don't follow trends just because I want to be liked and I want people to think I'm some virtuous person. I don't do that. I believe in what I believe in. I do what I want to do. I won't do something just because someone else tells me to do it. I won't speak a certain way because other people are speaking a certain way. I speak how I want to speak. I use language how I want to use language. So I'm conscious of that. So I'm not going to get on with most neurotypical people. It doesn't mean I'm going to dislike them either. That's not the case. It's not like I'm not bitter. I'm not like, oh, neurotypicals are shit. No, because I make an effort to speak to as many people as I can and like eliminate my own stereotypes and my own judgments. So it's not that I dislike neurotypicals. I just know that I'm not going to have close relationships with them, which is a different thing. Just give me a second. Oh, whoa. Sorry about that. So that's the thing, is like, and I feel like that is a trap that you can get into, because a lot of us have gone through like a lot of pain. We've gone through a lot of hurt. We've been bullied. People have said nasty things to us. We've suffered a lot at the hands of neurotypicals, right? But holding a grudge is not the way to go. And again, like if you want to do that, I always said, look, if that's your path, that's your path at the end of the day. You know, if you want to hold on to bitterness and anger, etc., that is your path. If that feels right to you, then do it. But for me personally, holding on to anger and blaming an entire group, neurotypicals, which is what, like 92% of the world, to hold that grudge is a big burden. Or, you know, to me personally, to carry that anger, you know. I remember having a conversation with Mark, and he's got PTSD. I was talking about something that happened to me as a kid. And he said, oh, if it was me, I'd just go around to his house and just beat the shit out of it. And I said, no, I don't need to. And he's like, oh, why not though? He's like, you know, and I said, because I don't carry the anger anymore, I've let it go. I said, look, this happened to me when I was a kid. He's an old man now. Like, he can't hurt anyone else. You know what I mean? Like, he's defeated. Like, I've seen him, you know, and like, what would me going over there and beating the crap out of it, what would it do? What would it do for me? What would it do for him? Like, what would it do for the world? Like, I'm not carrying the anger anymore. But that's the thing, obviously he's got PTSD and he carries the anger. He hates the world, you know, and he carries it with him, and you can see it, and it destroys him from the inside. But that's the thing. I won't carry that anger. I refuse to. I won't let anger destroy me. I'm not a slave to my own bitterness, and I won't be. I refuse to be. You know, I'm my own person. So, yeah, it can be very easy to get bitter at neurotypicals because of the journey we've had and because of how much we've suffered. But they are a victim of their own unconscious loops, and I know this is a really difficult concept for people to understand because, and a lot of the time, it's what I call black and white thinking. Now, the majority of people that you meet in life, and you know, like maybe even you think this way, but in my experience, a lot of neurotypicals don't think this way because we think outside of the box. But the idea is that the world is black and white, that there's only two options in everything that you do. So good and evil, a lot of the time, is at the basis of it. So there's good guys and there's bad guys. And every single person, you filter into one of those two groups. And which group they go into is very dependent on whether you agree with them or not. So if someone has an opinion that you don't like, say politically or religiously, or, you know, I believe in God, I don't believe in God, whatever it may be, and you don't agree with them, and then because you don't agree with them, you label them as a bad person. So you say, well, if you don't believe in this, then you want to murder kids. If you don't believe in this, then you're a paedophile. If you don't believe in this, then, you know what I mean? And then you start throwing on these extreme labels on top of them and being like, well, I'm gonna label you with all these nasty things just because you don't agree with me, which then justifies my hate for you. So you go into the evil category, you go into the bad guy category, you know, you go into this category of, you know, stereotypes. Well, because you're a white male, you're clearly a bad person. You're going into hate, you know, because you're, or the other way, you know, because you're a Muslim or because, you know, you're a terrorist, you're going into this group, you're an evil person. You know, like there's prejudice everywhere, like, you know what I mean, from every side, no matter what skin colour you've got. And it's this black and white. You see it in politics as well. There's only two choices. You know, there's only, like we've only got one or two choices. You either vote left or you vote right. They're both piles of shit. They're both turds, you know. Some people don't believe that, but honestly, they're both shit choices because the system is corrupt. You know what I mean? Politics is corrupt, and they're all liars. So you've got two choices. They're both shit, right? But you've got to make a choice, left or right. If you choose right, the left hates you. If you choose left, the right hates you. If you don't choose, they both hate you because you say, well, you're throwing your vote away. You know, so like, no matter what you choose, even if you're a conscientious objector and you say, I don't believe in politics, they're like, well, you're a piece of shit because you're the reason the world's going to crap because you don't vote. It's like, but no matter who gets in power, the world continues to go to crap. So how is that my fault that I don't vote? I'm not voting for the system that continues. But that's the thing. People think in black and white. You know, not everyone, but a lot of people do. And you find this, and it is consistent with like, and when you come up against this, the best thing to do is step away because it's like seeing in 2D. It's seeing in like two-dimensional. It's like looking at the world like it's a cartoon. You know, like there are villains and there are heroes. You know, this is the world. This is the reality. This is the perception where demons exist, where the devil exists. You know, where entities exist that can control your thoughts and can influence you to do things that you don't want to do. I'll tell you right now, mate. That's all fucking bullshit. No one tells me or fucking can make me do anything that I don't want to do. There's no demon floating in here and saying, right, go take a piss, I'm going to force you. It's like, no, that's just all you're doing is shifting blame. That's all you're doing. Like, take accountability, you know, claim agency over your own actions. Because everything that you do, every choice that you make, everything that you do, there's always a choice. Like, you may not feel like there's a choice, but there's always a choice. Like in the extreme, in the very extreme, because when you go to the end of choice, in the very extreme, you can choose to die for what you believe in, or you can capitulate and betray every morality, every part of your integrity that you've ever had throughout your life. If someone puts a gun to your head, and this is, you know, kind of like a philosophical question, and you could say like, it was never more prominent than with the Nazis, right? So if someone puts a gun to your head and says, you kill this person or I'll kill you, what would you do? Because, and it's an innocent person, say it's a little girl, you know what I mean? Say it's a little kid, and you've got to shoot them. You know, this is what happened with the Nazis, you know what I mean? And, you know, because if they didn't follow the orders, the commanding officer would shoot them, and if they didn't follow their orders, the commanding officer would shoot them, and so forth, all the way up to Hitler, and that was how it worked, you know what I mean? So what would you do? Now, most people, like if you ask them what they do, they would say, no, I wouldn't shoot the kid, right? That's what they would say. But what they would do, the majority of people would shoot the kid because it's survival. Because the majority of people are in survival mode, right? And they would do whatever it takes to survive. So, and Nazi Germany proved that. Like, Germans are not like evil people. They're not different from the rest of humanity. It's not like they're like a small segment and of evil human beings that just, you know, they're not. And German people are really lovely people as well, because I've met quite a few Germans, and they're really honest about what happened as well, about the history and learning from it. And the whole country agreed to be disarmed as well, so they can't get involved in any wars. They don't have any fucking military, you know what I mean? So like, they've learned from their mistakes. But my point is, anyone can be a Nazi. That's my point. And until like we sort of confront that, like until we confront the darkness in ourselves, we're not going to be honest about the darkness in the world. All of the darkness going on in the world, all of what you perceive or what people perceive as evil, it's all created by us, all of it. And we possess it inside of us, every single one of us. You know, if people chose kindness, if you know what I was talking about before, if we came together and we united in love and not hate and anger, you know, if we united in love and helping people, there wouldn't be any world hunger. And speaking of that, actually, world hunger has actually dipped down below 8% for the first time ever in history. And did you know in the 70s it was at 35%? It's now at 7.8%. That's just a little fact for you. Anyway, so we wouldn't have world hunger. We wouldn't have starvation. We wouldn't have, like, you know, people getting raped and things like that. We wouldn't have, like, people getting murdered, you know, because we would... Like, this is the thing, you'd have, like, social justice, you'd be holding people accountable. Like, a lot of this stuff comes from isolation, what we do in the dark, that sort of thing. You know, because there's no accountability, there's no consequences. Like, without consequences, people will just go and do things because they know, so, oh, well, no one's going to punish me for it, you know. But, like, if there are real consequences for things, then it dissuades people from doing that behavior. And not only that, being within a community, because a lot of this behavior is allowed to continue. It starts off small, doesn't it? And then it's allowed to continue, and then it becomes, then eventually you get someone who goes out and you know, their anger explodes and they end up causing chaos. Like, but the thing is you can get it early on. So like if you're part of a community where and there's all different people in that community, and you start, you know, displaying toxic behavior, it'll be stamped out really quickly, like a little fire. As soon as everyone sees that little fire, they'll stamp it out. So as soon as someone starts talking, starts getting angry and spitting hate and all that, it'll be stopped right away. Now, not stopped as in shut the fuck up, because no, that's not what will happen. You'll have it'll be the group will say, right, well, let me just explain to you, like, what the consequences of thinking like this are, and we'll break it down. And then the thing is, the pressure of the group, because that one person who's advocating for hate and murder and killing people, right? They'll be like, no, I think we should just murder them. I think they're just evil people. I think that, why should we put it with them like that? I'm in this world and I have to live here, and, turning the feelings into a narrative that I talked about, building a story, because they're angry at their own life. They're putting that, they're putting their feelings and turning it into a big story, so, it becomes about their anger. I was distracted for a minute. Then I kind of trailed. So someone stared at me through the window, and I was like, "Well, why are you staring at me?" So anyway, So the behaviour. So them doing that in front of the group, because the thing is that the harmony of the whole point of the group, because there's a harmony within the group, right? Because we all have to get along. So no matter how different people's opinions are or whatever, you still have to listen. You can't attack people. Like, within the group, you're protected within the group. This is why it's a great place for women to be, because it's like you're safe within the group. All of the males within the group protect you. You've got a bigger protection group. You know what I mean? Just give me a second. Sorry about that. I had to answer the door. Also, I noticed I listened to this podcast back, and there are some dips in the audio. The reason for that is because I was actually in an apartment at the time, and it's not in the environment that I'm usually in, so there was a bit of an echo, a bit of a dip, so I apologize for that. And in the future, I'll make sure I do it in the same room so the audio won't dip in and out. But yeah, what I was saying is, in a group dynamic, I was talking about, women feel protected, because the men are the protectors, and then you've got women who provide a lot of the emotional support. It can also mix and match, because it's not, we're not in clearly defined gender roles. So it's not like, oh, the men have to do this and the women have to do it. It's not like that. But in general, women are better at emotional support. Men are sort of better protectors, that sort of thing. But yeah, when there's a person who basically starts getting angry and starting arguing with people, because that's the thing is, in a functional, healthy group, you have to have boundaries, you have to have respect. Now, the group will teach them that. Say if they're a young person, they don't yet know that, the group will teach them that. And then they've got a choice. It's integrate or leave, basically. Now, it doesn't mean leave forever, but it'll be look, if you can't be in a group setting and speak to people respectfully, it's when you get angry, it's you're gonna have to, if you can't control your anger, go away and come back when you can, because these are the rules of the group. We all have to respect each other, we all have to treat each other with kindness. That doesn't mean avoiding conflict, because we can still resolve conflict, we can still resolve disagreements, but we can resolve it without getting angry at each other, without screaming at each other, without threatening each other. You know what I mean? So within a group, and this is why you have, to a certain degree, rehabilitation from people who, say if someone's mentally ill and they've got a lot of problems, we can work on that over time. So it doesn't mean just throw them out of the group if they've got issues. No, it's we can resolve these issues gradually, but at the same time, you still have to speak to people with respect. You still have to respect people's boundaries. If someone says, this is too much, you're getting too angry, you have to respect that. You can't speak over them. You can't start screaming at them. That's one of the advantages about being in a group dynamic. And I think that's part of the reason that we need people. I was talking to Karen, and she's got a son who's got ADHD, and she's a single parent. And the thing is, I personally believe, and I know that it's not always an ideal situation, and with Karen, there's good reasons why she's not with, the father of the child, and why they don't have a relationship. So I'm not saying that shouldn't be the way it is. But
what I'm saying is like this young kid, he's kind of going off the rails a bit, and it was sort of clear to me that the kid, it doesn't necessarily need the father, but he needs like a male role model to kind of guide him, because even though women can provide a lot of emotional support and all that sort of thing, but men do tend to be better at the discipline side. They tend to be like young boys, a lot of them, when they get to that certain age and the hormones come in and they're just like, yeah, yeah, just let's go, and girls, 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 and I do believe that they need a male role model at that point to kind of calm them down and guide them, to be able to not control them, but just guide them in a certain direction where they're not just going off the rails. And it looks like that's what he's doing. And I do want to point out that I know it's incredibly difficult to raise a kid with ADHD. Like it's so much, I've had friends, and I still have friends who have ADHD. And even as an adult, it's difficult to deal with. So, a teenager, 15 years old, hormones and everything, ADHD, it's got to be extremely difficult. And I told Karen that. But at the same time, I still think that like he doesn't have any male role models in his life, and he's a bit lost, like in his direction of where, like he's kind of like so he went to this party with like all of the kids his age, and he said, oh, I got 20 girls numbers. And I was like, he got 20 girls numbers? I was like, did he like any of the girls? And there was a word for it that he used, and I can't remember. He said they all kind of lined up and get, like, I don't know whether, I mean, that sounds like bullshit. I don't think they lined up to give him his number, but he was kind of like boasting about it, and it was like his ego was going off into the stratosphere. And then he said, oh, he did get one girl's number, like apparently amongst the 20 who arranged a date with. And then he went on the date with them. And it was a good date, but then he was essentially he became obsessed, and he was like messaging her constantly. Can we meet up? Can we meet up? Can we meet up? Why isn't she messaging me back? That kind of thing. And I think when that happens, especially when it comes to dating, because it's something that he's not really experienced with. And I just think in that moment, and she's tried everything with him, but it doesn't seem to be working. I just think in that moment, maybe he needs like a father figure, or a man to step in and say, look, just ask him the questions and say, look, what do you want? Do you want like, a stable relationship? Do you want a long-term girlfriend, or do you just want to mess around? Because the thing is at that age, and I'll always say to people, look, the blueprint is, oh, you meet someone, you have babies, you get married, or you get married, then you have babies, whatever. That's the blueprint. But the thing is, it's okay. Like if you just want to go and have fun, it's okay to be in that, in that headspace. Like if you're not ready for a long-term relationship at that age, that's fine. That's the best age to do it, because a lot of the time your 20s, are just for sort of living life and having great moments and enjoying yourself and having a great time. So I would ask him the question and say, look, what do you want? Do you want to just do the casual thing? Because if you do, it's okay to want that, but all you have to do is communicate that clearly right off the bat, so they know, so you're transparent with them from the beginning, and say, look, I'm just looking for something casual. Is that's what are you looking for that? And if the answer is no, you move on, don't you? If you're looking for a long-term girlfriend, the way that he's being, where he's sort of being obsessive and constantly harassing, again, it's boundaries, respect, isn't it? It's like, no, you like, she was off in Alton Towers at one point with a friend, and he was constantly texting her, oh, can you tell, why are you not responding to me? And I was like, fucking hell, mate. Like, she's off, she's busy, she's having a good time. Just leave her alone for a bit. You know what I mean? You've got to give people the space. And I know that this is an ADHD thing, but I just think, it's important when they reach that stage to be able to kind of guide them a little bit and explain to them why it's important that people have the space. Explain to them why. Just give them a bit of breathing space, like, and also, like I said, ask the questions about what do you actually want? Like, do you want a long-term girlfriend? Do you want a short-term girlfriend? Do you want to just have a bit of fun? Because I don't think he really has any idea about what he wants. I think he's just led by his own hormones. But yeah, so my whole point in telling that story was that younger people especially need guidance. And I think you get that from a community with people of all different ages, all different walks of life, like the grandfather's generation. So I grew up, I left home when I was 12, and I went in to live with my granddad. And I think it's important, again, like not just to have a mother and a father, to have the two sides, but also to the grandparents, because the grandparents have lived, like depending on their age, like 60, 70, 80 years on the earth, you know, and they've got a lot of experience, they've got a lot of knowledge, and they've got a lot of wisdom to share, you know. And again, I think it's important to speak to people who have been through life, who've had so many different experiences. Like I speak to people in the park, they've had so many different experiences, they've got a wealth of knowledge, you know what I mean? So like you want any answer to any question, or you're struggling or whatever, you know. And that's the thing with older people, they've slowed down. With younger people, it's all like high energy, isn't it? Everything's high energy, you know. It's like boom, 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 boom. But with older people, they've been through all that, they've done all that, they've made mistakes, they've learned from them, they, you know, they have a lot of knowledge to share. And again, I think it's important. Like in society today, we seem to discard old people like they're just, you know, pieces of rubbish that, or a toy that doesn't function properly anymore, so we just throw them in care homes. And it's like, no, like the older generation have always served it traditionally in society. They've, like, you go back thousands of years, you know, that they were like the wise elders, you know what I mean? Like they used to, you know, if the enemy had to make any big decisions in the tribe, in the village, you know, you go to your elders, and you know, they'll make a decision because they've got more of a cooler head, you know. Like they're not, like I said, they're not as high energy as what young kids are. And I think that's important as well, you know, to teach them to slow down a little bit and just think things through and not always be like 100 miles per hour. And I think that's important. And that's why in communities like this, it's important that you have people of all ages, you know what I mean? And I think that if you had that, and if we were all in these groups, because now we're not in groups like that, we're all isolated. You know, I remember I heard someone talking about church. I think it was Jimmy Carr, I can't remember. But he's saying, look, I'm not religious, but I do miss what church used to bring, because everyone used to meet up on a Sunday. It was a time when you saw all of the community, and it was this shared space that you all had. But we don't have that anymore. I'm not saying we have to go back to church. No, we don't necessarily have to do that. But it's not the church that's the problem. It's the fact that you've completely cut off our community now. So now you don't, like, a lot of us don't even know who our neighbours are. You know what I mean? We're living in a place surrounded by strangers, and there's no communication, and I don't think that's conducive to a healthy society. You know what I mean? Like I don't think like you can get away with anything and no one knows the difference, do they? You know, there's no consequences. What I spoke about before. So yeah, I think that's incredibly important. I think building communities again, and I think neurodivergence. Even though, like I said, we can get into that point of exhaustion and isolation, but if we find the right people, we can do that. We can start building these communities. We can start, you find your tribe, you know, your support system, and then you build outwards from there, because that will make you so much stronger. That will give you so much more energy. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I think if we have any way forward in the future, it starts with becoming communities again. It starts with, you know, my grandparents' generation, my granddad, he was super social. He knew everyone. Like he used to, because you remember, like years ago, they used to sweep up the step and do the garden every day and stuff, and people would walk past, wouldn't they? And he'd be like, hello, are you all right, Peter? Oh, how's it going? We knew all the neighbours. I mean, I did personally, but my grandparents did. They knew all the neighbours. You know, they knew most, like around Manchester, around this area, like they knew near enough everyone. Someone walked past, they knew who they were. And if they didn't know, they said hello. And then if they saw him again, oh, how are you doing? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And they get to know him. And the thing is, we don't have that anymore. Now we have technology. Now we have smartphones. Now we're not connecting to people face to face, and we've become very detached from other human beings. You know, we've become very insular. Like we're living in these echo chambers now, where our own opinions are just echoed back to us, and we're not learning anything. You know, and I think that's a problem. That's a problem for progress, and it's a problem for regulation as well, because like communities, it can help you to emotionally regulate. Like if you're going through something difficult, I remember again with Karen, and she was really struggling with a Labrador because he's a young puppy, and she was like, you could tell she was close to a breakdown, and we all helped her. And I said to her, I said, oh, just give, her name's the Labrador's called Scotty. I said, just give me the lead and just let me have Scotty for a bit. So, oh no, it's all right. I said, no, Karen, honestly, I could tell, like, you're near to tears, like, just give me the dog. And I took the dog and we walked around the park, and then all the women sort of came together and, you know, sat down and had a chat. And I just looked after Scotty with the other guys. We were just throwing the ball and playing with them and stuff. and all the girls, not the girls, but women, you know, they all surrounded her and was sat on the cafe and drinking coffee and just having a chat and says, "Oh, it's okay, Karen. You know, I went through this," and it's emotional support. We all need emotional support. You know what I mean? And women are great at that. You know, and that's the thing. You know, like if we're allowed to just, you know, like segregate and isolate, and we don't have any support system, everything comes like we've got no one to rely on when it comes to emotionally regulating ourselves. We've got no one to rely on when it comes to like nervous system regulation, feeling safe. So then a lot of us, you know, we just end up isolated and just terrified of going outside. And, you know, it's because that's the thing. We don't feel safe. We don't have that support system. And I do think going forward in the future, I think that is the way forward. We have to go back to creating and to building these communities, you know. And if we do that, then, you know, I think people will be more understanding of each other, you know, because you talk to different people, you hear different stories, you understand people go through different things. You know, like there was a guy on the train today and he was really pissed off, you know, like he was, and what it was is he had a cane and he apparently had severe spinal issues and he was breathing heavy in, and I could tell. And this guy got up from his chair and he sat down. And then the guy came back and said, "You're in my seat, mate." And he was like, "Well, you got up and you left. I thought you were getting off." He's like, No, I just went up to go to the toilet." And he's like, well, don't fucking get up then. You know, he started swearing at him. You know, he started getting angry and everyone was looking at him. And I said, you know, what people don't realize, and I know that it's not nice to be sworn at and all that, but the guy was in so much pain and he was forced to stand up on the train and no one was acknowledging his pain. So he started to get angry and he was really struggling, you know what I mean? And the thing is like just a bit of kindness in that moment. Like other people, what chances are what would have happened? A lot of people would have got angry at him and then started shouting at him. But like I said, the people who act like that, a lot of the time, they're the ones who are in the most pain. Remember the story about the girl? There was three homeless people, three homeless women. She went to the first one, you know, a little girl. So the mother, I'm going too ahead of the story now. So a mother and the little girl see three homeless people right down the street, and the girl says, "Mum, can I have some money? I want to give the homeless people some money." And it's, "Oh no," and then she convinced, "Oh no, please," and she gives her the money, and then she goes to the homeless people. She goes to the first one, you know, says hello to her, and she's really nice to her, and then she goes to the second one, and the same sort of thing, you know, she's really nice to her, and then she goes to the third one, and the third one is really nasty to her, you know, and says, you know, get away from me, I don't want you here, you know, blah, 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 go back to your mum, blah, 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 blah. And the little girl gives the third woman the money, right? And then she goes back to her mum. And then the mum says, "Why did you give the third one the money when she treated you the worst?" And she said, "Mum, because she was in the most pain. Because to treat someone like that, and it's like a dog that's been beaten, isn't it? Imagine a dog that's been beaten, that's shivering in the corner, and every time you go near it, it goes to bite you. That dog is in the most pain. It's the same with people. Like if someone is acting like that and is angry all the time, I guarantee you they've had a hard life. You know what I mean? And a lot of the time people just bypass them and say, well, you don't fucking deserve it because, you know, you're being angry and swearing at me. But if we met that with kindness and consideration, like I've seen people apologize to me, you know, like when they got angry with me in the beginning. And then I said, "Oh, you know, sorry about that. I didn't realize, you know, like with the dog, if the dog comes up and, oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. You know, honestly, I turned around, I explained my side of the situation. I said, I'm really sorry, it is my fault, you know." And then I remember the guy actually said, "You know what, it's you know, I shouldn't have, like, you know, had that outburst, you know, because I'm just having a bit of a bad day." I said, "No, don't worry about it, mate. It's all right. Don't worry about it, you know." But I could have got angry at him for being angry at me. And that is a vicious cycle. That's an eye for an eye. It doesn't work, you know, because you get angry and I get angry and it just escalates. All it does, it just keeps escalating and escalating until eventually, you know, what good does that do? Where does that lead? You know, like a lot of the time, it just leads to trauma, essentially. You know, with men, it leads to fighting or, you know, physical altercations. But it doesn't need to go like that. You know what I mean? And the thing is, excuse me, that is reactive behavior, where we just react. So if someone's angry at us, we're angry at them. If someone's nice to us, we're nice to them. I remember asking a question on Threads actually, and I put a post up, and I said, I'm kind to people no matter how they are to me. So I'm kind to people up until, like, if they become abusive to me, then I'll set a boundary. So I'm just going to tolerate anything, but I give them respect. I like, everyone has my respect until they lose it. And there was an American guy that commented on there, and he said, no, that's not how I think. They've got to give me respect first before they earn it from me. They've got to be nice to me first before I'm nice to them. And I was like, so you're reactive. You're completely at the whim of whoever. So, I just think, if you go through life like that, you're a slave to whatever's around you. You know what I mean? To any circumstance, circumstantial of something, someone honks at you in a car, you just reacting to everything. You're just going to reflect back every single emotion that comes back at you. But there's a better way than that. Like, if you can learn to emotionally regulate, which I think, it will save you a lot of stress. It'll save you a lot of, a lot of trauma, where, yes, someone's angry at me. Okay. Is there a reason behind it? Empathy, seek to understand their side of it. Have I ignored them? Have I acknowledged them? As like, why are they angry? You know what I mean? So there's a way in which we don't have to get into confrontations with people all the time just because someone's angry at us. Like, we can de-escalate a situation. At the same time, because that's the thing, if you give people a chance, if someone's angry and you react with kindness, consideration, you apologize, and then that gives them a chance to step back and be like, you know what, actually, I shouldn't have done that. But the thing is, right, if you give them a chance and you're kind, and then they're still going on at you, and you apologize, and then you set a boundary and say, no, like, you're being unreasonable now. Like, I've apologized, I've acknowledged what happened. Like, if they get to a point where they're just, then it's like, right, okay, I'm going to have to walk away now. I'm not going to get angry at you, but I am going to have to walk away because this is where I draw the line. So, which, funnily enough, is it's not really happened to me. But I do want to, on the next episode, I do want to speak about boundaries, because boundaries are so important, and it will change your fucking life. And it has changed my life with boundaries, and there's reasons why. And I want to talk about it on the next episode. But I want to end this one here because I feel like I've kind of covered the topics that I set out to do, mainly about, the chalk drawings. Oh, and funnily enough, today I went into the park, and guess what? Next to my chalk drawings, I assume it was like a young girl or a young boy. They'd drawn a unicorn next to my drawings, and they imitated the rainbow that I did on the floor. And I was like, yes! Finally, someone has joined in with my chalk drawings, and I went in there, to just have a wander about, and just I like to go in nature because it allows me to think, with the the birds chirping in the trees and stuff. I just find it easy to think when I'm in nature. And part of the reason was I just wanted to check the drawings were still there, which they were, because it hadn't rained, so I chose a great time to do it. So in the end. And all the drawings and stuff were still there, and I saw a couple of people again who I knew, an Irish couple, and they sort of said to me, "Oh, your drawings are still there, and they're really good," and said, "It makes me feel better about my day and all that." And I was happy that someone picked it up, because, like, I know I do it for my own reasons, but I like it when people join in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm playing a game essentially, and like it's great to play the game, like with the tree hugging thing, but if no one ever joins in, it just starts to become a lonely game, you know what I mean? So I even if it's just the kids, and I do feel like kids a lot of the time are more aware. They pick up on things like that. They pick up on playing around in games, imagination, you know what I mean? Adults, a lot of the time, a lot of them can be quite closed off. They don't notice things. When I wear my funny T-shirts, most adults don't notice them, but the kids do. They say, "Oh, what's your T-shirt say?" Like they notice those little things. So I really get on with kids, like, excuse me. So I was really happy about that someone drew a unicorn. I did think about drawing a unicorn, but I thought, no, I'm not good enough. And they drew like a kitten as well. So I was really happy about that someone actually responded to me with a message. So yeah, I think I covered everything that I wanted to do in this one. Like I said, the next one will be about boundaries, because I feel like that has changed my life, and I feel like if you understand boundaries and able to set boundaries, it'll probably change yours as well, if you don't already know about boundaries or you don't already set boundaries. So I just wanted to also, again, apologies for the audio dipping in and out, but that won't happen again. I'll definitely fix that. But yeah, thank you for listening again to the episode. I'm incredibly grateful. And I hope you learned something from this. I hope you know that everything that I say and I do is all with a good intention, even though I know some of the topics can be, it can be triggering, when we go to extremes, and when we talk about things, like it can be, you talk about the dark side of things, that which we all contain inside of us, both light and dark. And, it can be, the topics can be difficult to hear, but there's always a good reason behind it. There's always a good intention. So I just wanted to state that. And yeah, thanks for listening. And I'll see you on the next episode.